The let function is one of Excel's most powerful tools for writing cleaner, faster, and more organized formulas. It lets you define variables inside a formula, give them names, and then reuse those names instead of repeating the same expressions again and again. This not only makes your formulas easier to read, it also improves performance, especially when working with large datasets. The syntax for the let function is simple. You can define one or more names and values, and then tell Excel what to do with them in the final calculation. Think of it as writing a formula step by step, but all in one cell. Let's start with a simple example. Suppose we have sales amount in column D, and we want to calculate the total sales amount after applying tax. Let's use a let function. And for our name, let's call that tax rate. And our value for tax rate is 8%. Now we can apply more names and value pairs, or we can put in our calculation. For our calculation, we can simply say sales multiplied by tax rate. Here, I'm going to repeat the name of the variable we defined and press enter. While this shows you a simple example of how the let function works, it may not be very useful in this case, as I can simply multiply 8% by the sales amount. The let function really shines when your formulas start to get longer and repetitive. It helps you avoid repeating calculations and lets you break down complex formulas into smaller logical pieces. Now let's look at a more practical example, calculating the profit margin. Normally, you'll write your profit margin as the sales minus the cost divided by the sales. And in some cases, you want to wrap your formula with an IFERROR function. But using the let function makes it a lot more cleaner. We simply start with let, and let's define our first variable as profit, which is sales minus cost. And then let's define the margin as the profit divided by the sales. And for our calculation, we can now wrap the margin in an IFERROR function. And if the margin is error, we want to wrap it as 0. This structure makes it obvious what's going on, and anyone reading it can follow the logic instantly. Now, let's take it a step further with a more advanced example. Say we want to determine the rating of each employee. Where each employee's sales is above 20% of the average, we rate them excellent. Where it's within 20% of the average, we rate good, otherwise fair. First, let's get the list of all employees. We can use a unique function to get the unique list of all employees. And if we want to sort these alphabetically, we can also add a sort function before the unique function. To get started with the let function, let's first expand the formula bar. We begin by typing our function. The first pro tip, as I promised, is you can type a multi-line function by pressing the Alternate and Enter key to move to the next line. Our first variable, employee sales, we'll calculate it using a SUMIFS function. Our sum range is the sales, our criteria range is the employee names, and our criteria is going to be each name we're calculating for. Our next variable is going to be total sales, which is simply a sum of the sales column. Then we're going to calculate the employee count. So we want to count the total number of employees. we're going to use a count A function, which counts text values. And let's count the unique names of our employees. Remember to lock your cells so that it doesn't change, the cell position doesn't change when we copy the formula down. Now let's create one more variable for average sales, because we're going to be comparing the employee sales with the average sales. The average sales will be the total sales divided by the number of employees. Now you can see that when you begin typing a variable, it appears at the bottom, and you can use the tab to complete the variable name. Now let's begin typing our function. We're going to use an IFERROR function with an S. If you're not familiar with the IFERROR function, I have created a video which I'm going to put the link to above. So we're going to say if the employee sales is greater than the average sales multiplied by 1.2, then it should return excellent. Otherwise, if the employee sales is greater than the average sales multiplied by 0.8, which is going to be 20% within the average, then we want to return good. And lastly, for all other conditions, we want to return fair. Make sure you close all of your parentheses when using a let function. And voila! That's how we can perform a complex calculation using the let function. If you're still here, you'll get to see the second pro tip I promised. If you ever want to debug a formula or check what a piece of your formula is returning, simply select that piece of your formula and press the F9 key. You'll be able to see what that piece of the formula is returning. Make sure after debugging you hit the escape key. If you found this tutorial helpful, give it a like, drop a comment with your favorite Excel feature, and don't forget to subscribe for more quick, practical data tutorials. Keep mastering data, and I'll see you in the next lesson.